before I go onto the base, just a reminder of how it looks. I'm pretty happy now. As I said, there's a few inconsistencies on the base, but because I'm going to do kind of a mist effect, I'm not going to put any more effort in on sanding it down. So just a reminder as it looks. Haven't put the tail on yet, and I haven't attached it to the base. Essentially sit on like that. So I guess my aim is to fill all this in. I'm going to go for kind of a blue, purple and green transition all the way around. I'm thinking blue's going to work its way through these sort of central pieces, predominantly purple on the mist itself, and then just getting green, blue and purple just within the mist to make it a bit more magical. Well, that's the idea. These bits at the back, I think I'm going to go with your quite typical yellow to black fire or explosion transition, which I'll paint on afterwards. Base grey, and then once I'm completely happy with everything, I'm going to go in with a metallic purple to fill in the Sentinel hand, maybe some silvers. So that's the idea. I probably will be getting my airbrush out for this, but to start off with, I just want to get a preliminary colour scheme down. So I'm going to take the model off and get that out of the way. Separate these two, just so I can work on them in two pieces. And yeah, I'm just going to start building up the colour. So, as I said, I've got a selection of blues, McRae, Lothran and Temple Guard, two purples, Naggaroth and Gene Stealer, and I particularly like these greens. I think they create like a really kind of sharp, light, kind of ghoulish green look. So that's my selection. I might throw some white in here and there, but for the moment I just want to get quite a big brush. Probably going to start off with purple and then so as I mentioned, layer some of the blue into these sort of central lines. But honestly, it is just the case that I'm going to, just going to basically just start slapping this on. Right, so that is now sort of the basic colouring. As I said, it's literally is what I consider to be now the base. I'm going to put a lot more layers onto it, but I just kind of felt like this was the colour I wanted to go for. Just whilst that's all drying, I'm just going to pick something like, I think just the lighter purple again. I think my next aim is going to be just to fill in the base colours of everything else. Just again for me, just to feel like I know where I'm going. And then once I've got to that point, I'm going to apply a wash and then start building up some of these tones and colours before I get out my airbrush. Still drying, but I was getting bored, so I've just got some white and black. I'm going to mix that up. As always, I always put too much black on. That's why I buy and use very cheap black. So now I've got a relatively dark grey. I just want to start going around. I'm still going to start being neat now, just because I don't want to get it onto this, but I just want to make sure there aren't any spaces left over and I'm starting to capture everything. Whilst I've got some of that black there, I'm going to just take some straight black and get that over all the parts that I think are going to be metal. One, just for the view, and two, just I find metallics cover over black a lot better. So I just want to start preparing that again whilst everything's drying. Gives me something to do. Right, so pretty much got everything still drying. I now just want to get just plain white. The reason for this is I just find when I'm building up the colours of flames, and you probably see I've already made a mess at the back of this now. Move this out of the way. It was printed like this, so I acknowledge that the print and the quality of this is not how it should be. You know, if this was done in resin or even a good FDM printer with PLA, you know, I'd probably get a better outcome. But even then, I still want there to be some colour, and I don't want to just neglect this. It's clearly a different design. You've got smoke coming forward, explosion coming backwards. So I'm not worried if I contaminate this white. You can see it's already getting a bit grey, but I just want to get all of this. So, hopefully now you can see, it's got all the colours. It's got a nice little shading between the purples, blues and greens. And I'd say that's just a nice starting point for the base. Yeah, once that's dry, I'll apply a wash and then we can start to build up the colours. Dry, but I'm actually quite surprised with how much the greens and blues have been kind of absorbed into the purple. So very quickly now, I'm just going to go over with the blue and green a little bit more, just so it's a bit more pronounced. So okay, so once that dries, I now feel happy with that as my base layer. So what I've done now is I've just mixed together essentially like a purple wash, but I've done it with a black dipping formula, thinned that out with some airbrush thinner, and then added some violet purplish ink. Really all I want to do is slap this all over the the purple, blue, green area just to add some depth before I kind of go around again. It's still drying, as you'd expect. It'll take an hour or so, but it's now really starting to help blend those sort of three colours and get all the colours together. And most importantly for me, I find that just without the lines and creating that depth, it just looks a little bit flat. So that's all dried now, and what I want to do, just kind of whatever seems right for me, but I've taken the lighter green, the lighter purple, and I'm going to do a dry brush with them, just working my way around all the smoke area. And as I said, it's kind of just what feels right. So So now I'm relatively happy with that. I think it looks nice. Just going to go over the Lovenbrew. Obviously just the blue areas. But I am going to help it just transition onto the, I don't know what you call it, the mist again. And I'll show you where I am so far. It is pretty crazy, I agree. But I think the next thing I want to do is just move up onto the white. So I'm going to keep the blue on the brush because I do want it to have a tint of blue to it, but I just want to get a final very bright blue just hitting certain areas. Very close to these streams as well. So, I mean, this is pretty much what I've tried to work out. As I said, if this was a resin print, I didn't have all the kind of typical PLA lines, or maybe if I'd spent a bit more time, but these types of designs are really hard, I find, to get a perfect finish, unless you're going to go ABS and smooth it. But yeah, as I said, I really like the sort of the transition of colours. You know, it's a really sort of vibrant piece for the base. But before I do anything else on this, as I said, I might add a glaze or something else just to build up on the transitions. I'm now going to start working on the flames. So, to start on the flames, I'm going to go for an easy one because I said it's at the back. I'm going to dry brush loads of black over it to transition. So I'm only going for a 4 colour. So yellow, green, yellow, orange, light red, darker red. So starts off in the yellow. For this, I'll use not a detailed brush, but just not too crazy. I just want to start getting that into all the areas, about 20% in. Normally, I would wait for that to dry and add a second coat. But as I said, because it's at the back, because I intend to do loads of black dry brushing, I'm just going to continue my way through the process. Right, so that's now just drying. So it's got the transition of colours, and until that dries, and I'll add a black dry brush to help blend the two in and add that kind of charcoal smoke effect from a flame. But as I said, whilst that's drying, I've just mixed together some black and white, more of a dawnstone grey, so a very light grey now. It's not necessarily a dry brush, it's a heavy one, and I'm now just going to very carefully go over these stones. I'm bored again and things are drying, so I've got some Vallejo airbrush metallic medium, and I found it really good when you're mixing it with inks. You have to put quite a lot in there to keep it to a dark colour. Another reason why I wanted the base of the metal to be black, just because it helps keep the colour kind of dark. So I've mixed that together. Yep, you can see that, and I'm just putting it on. I think it's going to require 2 coats, but I'm just going to carefully work my way around this whilst the flames are still drying, just to get this metallic coat on. Okay. Okay, for the moment, as I said, like there's a few bits I've left here and here, but I like that. I think it kind of works. I want to add some scratches and stuff in, but just as that base layer, just get that metallic purple in, I'm happy. So I'll get that out of the way. I'll bring in now the 99% dry flames, grab some black acrylic, and just slap that a little bit onto the palette. So for the moment, again, I'm happy with the flames. I'm happy with the mist. I'm just going to now work on the 2 silver bits here. And then just a few scratches. So generally the Sentinel hand. Apologies, I got a bit sidetracked, so I just want to quickly highlight what I've done off camera. Taken some iron breaker. I've dry brushed the black of the 2, I say, broken fingers. Not really sure what these are meant to be, or maybe this is meant to be for the wrist, so the connector to the wrist. Either way, dry brushed these 2 with metal. I've then gone round, hopefully you can see, and I've used, God, where is it? The Rhinox hide, so you can kind of see those darker patches. So I layer that on first, and then just inside of those patches, I've then just added the silver. I might need to touch it up a bit more, but I've just been going over and adding in some of those scratches. And then on top of that, I've just picked out these mechanical parts in between and painted them silver as well. So that is where I am so far. Apologies I didn't capture it on camera. Okay, so I've just, I wanted a bit more depth on the hand, so I've mixed together some dipping formula with some water. So essentially just a black wash. And I'm just going to now apply this over the whole of the purple, sorry, the whole of the Sentinel hands, the purple. You can see now it's kind of giving it that extra sort of metally, gritty look. Once that dries, I'm going to give it a little dry brush with a metallic silver, just to kind of, yeah, just to bring it up a little bit. It's now dry, and I hope you see it's kind of looking a bit dirtier, getting some of those lines in. Also, I think just covering up some of the mess between the purple and the silver where I haven't been particularly neat. I've now got exactly the same thing, so my metallic medium purple or violet ink. Probably a slightly stronger density, so a bit more purple. And I'm now just going to start hitting a dry brush over everything. Probably won't make much of a difference, but I just want to start neatening up some of this purple before I add in a slightly lighter dry brush. slightly neaten that up a bit. What I'm now going to do is literally add 1 drop of the metallic medium in with no purple. So it's still going to be purple on the brush. It's essentially just going to lighten this colour up a tiny bit. And now just a slightly more focused dry brush. Just to finish off the Sentinel hand, I've got some of the Iron Breaker on a pretty steeped dry brush. My aim is to hit most of the silver and then occasionally bits of the purple as well, just because I do want there to be a bit more silvered effect on the purple. Hope it's going to make it look a bit more worn away and just add a bit of texture and blend the two together. Done. Actually, in fact, there's one other thing I did want to do whilst I'm here, so let's grab a half decent brush. I'm going straight to this dipping formula, which to me, as I've said before, is like a black ink. It's so thick and glossy, and I'm just going to use it as a way to substitute some oil. So I kind of feel like where these metal bits are broken, you're going to start getting really, really oily. So I do just want to kind of layer this in quite heavily to a point where it will dry as a thick black gloss. That black ink, although it's done the job in creating that oily look, I do feel like it's brought some of that silver down. So I've just got a dry brush with the same silver Iron Breaker, and I'm just kind of working it on from the furthest point. And there we go. I'd say now I'm done on the base. I've glued the tail on because I figured you can just about get it on with the tail on. It's not an easy fit. You have to kind of turn it as you're putting it on. And now just having a look, what I want is I want the kind of back of the total back of his body, this sort of front of his tail a little bit, coming up across this side of the leg, and yeah, just a little bit touching on the whites as well, just so I think it will show the colour. I'm going to do it in the order of purple to green to blue. And most importantly, I want the blue to really centralise around this hole. So when it connects, it should kind of, the blue should flow from this into his back, kind of spreading out into the green and into the purple. So, I'll start off with my purple dry brush. I'm just going to very, very slowly, and this really is a real dry brush, very, very light. Just bringing up those colours over everything else. Now I've done that, I just want to kind of filter the tail in between these two pieces. Just turn it around so I can line up the connection. Just needs to be turned a bit more. And then it will just slide in. So I could glue it in, but I think because I've made it so, a bit tight, but the top will come off. I can obviously take the piece off as well. I think it's quite a nice fit to keep them all maybe not glued together. So hopefully now you can see, just as you go around the edge, around the side, just kind of see how that blue transitions off the back of him. I didn't want to do too much. I felt like sometimes models, when you put too much colour on top of them, it just overbears all the work you've put in beforehand. But yeah, I just think it just ensures that the colour from the mist is sort of bouncing off the back of him. It's got a really cool base. And yeah, I think I like this model. So I'm just going to lean it up so you can have a decent look. As I said, I am desperate for the Elegoo Satin. I would have happily printed this entire base in resin, regardless of the cost. But, you know, I've added about 7 layers of filler primer. I think it's done a pretty good job. And overall, I think just with the Sentinel hand, it just really adds to what is already a cool figure. So, I really hope you've enjoyed the painting process. It's definitely one I'm happy to have on my shelf. Thank you.